Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the new Sandling Junction build and episode 5. So what's in store for you? Well, there's a little update on the actual track build itself. Not a lot's gone on, but more about that later. But one big thing is that I've made some changes in my area there where I do all my weathering and modeling, and that is that I've created new storage for all the paints that I've amassed over the time and continue, it seems, to add to. And as a new product comes out that suggests it can do wonderful things to our models, so Muggins here has to put an order in and buy one. So that little aspect of storage has come up, and I don't have a great deal of room in there to play with, so I'll show you what's gone on. Now, one thing I will say, I did a whole lot of footage in there. I did a whole lot of footage out here earlier, and unfortunately I absolutely screwed up all the sounds, so I've had to edit it down quite heavily, and I will do little voiceovers, so hopefully it won't detract too much from the whole thing. And the area that I filmed in there and out here, I've just finished refilming that, so it may be a little bit out of context and you may find a few things that are repeated, but I hope, as I say, my fault, but I hope it doesn't make too much of a difference. And at the end I will show you a few trains running as I did before, hopefully a couple of different ones, and yeah, we shall see what happens. So there is one thing before I finish and move on with this video, one thing I just want to say, and that is about 3 years ago I bought into a DCC Concepts Alpha Power. Now that's a small 5 amp power unit that boosts your overall system. When I had a great big layout that was down in the garage, the original Sandling, I needed more power, and that provided it. And it also meant that I bought a Pro Cab as well as having the power cab. So I had a much more beefy system to run the layout. Now, yes, I don't need such a beefy system in this layout, but having got it, I wanted to use it. Now, when I tore down Sandling Junction, and this is not a long story short, I do apologize, but when I tore it down, I put everything away carefully in boxes, and that's where it's remained for a year or so until I started building the new Sandling Junction, which you're all following along with, and I thank you very much for that. So when I started testing trains, I put my Pro Cab together, the Alpha Power unit together, and everything else, and it was working fine. Up, down, testing, lovely, fantastic. Couldn't argue with it. And then I came up about, a week ago, turned it on, nothing happened. Okay, checked everything, nothing still happened. I had another system where I plugged in the Pro Cab and the lights came on, so it wasn't that. I then changed the different things, like obviously the natural things like the fuses. Nothing changed. It wasn't working. So I rang up DCC Concepts, and the gentleman there was really sympathetic, and I did say, look, this is long out of warranty, but it's only been used a year or so, then it's been put in a box for a year or so, and it's just come out and just died. Can you please help? And they said, send it back, we'll have a look at it and we'll see what we can do. And that was it. So I sent it back, and I think a gentleman called Mick in the technical department said, yeah, it's completely non-responsive, and although it shouldn't happen, things can happen, as we all know. And within a day or so of that email from Mick at DCC Concepts in the technical side, he had sent me, or the company had sent me for free, a replacement. Now it's not brand new, but it's one of their sort of refurb good ones that they use in their office and what have you. They know it's good, and they sent it to me free of charge, and that's awesome. So hats off to DCC Concepts. Thank you very much, guys, for making me a much happier modeler. And yeah, it just restores faith in products out there, because, you know, so many people, they produce something, they don't do a particularly good job of it, they sell it to you, and when it goes wrong, they don't really want to know you. But DCC Concepts, I've got to say, have always been there when I've needed them, and they have always answered the call. If there's a problem, they spend a lot of time on the phone talking with you. So I've got to say a big, big thank you to that company, and may you go from strength to strength. But there you go. That's all out of the way. Now let's get on with the video, and I'll catch you all. Will I catch you at the other end? I might do, whatever. If I don't, I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and all those things. It really does help the channel grow and meet more people on the internet. So that would be special if you do that. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, now I did tell you that I did mess up this footage and certainly all the audio, but what I've got here to show you is the answer to all my paint storage solutions. And I made this little shelf bracket with some old piece of plywood at the back and doorstop. Now this doorstop, when it's planed up, comes out at 34 millimeters wide and is about ½ an inch thick. Now if you look to where Lobo's sitting by the door right now, ever hopeful that I'm going to take him outside and do a ball throw with him, but right next to him is the old shelving unit, which was 1 inch material and 3 inches wide. It really came out on and restricted the width of my desk upstairs, so I had to do something about that, and it really didn't cater for all the different paints that I actually had on hand. And I will continue to add to, so something had to be done. So this was my answer, and I had already cut the pieces of doorstop, and I put some spreaders in there and glued it all down, put some weight on overnight, and the result is as you see it. 2 separate sides, and they're supported in the middle. There's no nails gone into this, no tack pins, just purely glue. And then with the offcuts of mount board that I have from my framing studio at work, I trim them to 1 inch pieces, all the same depth all the way through, and then I use some tacky glue to put those on the front. Now this will serve 2 purposes really. It will serve to give me some swatches on that white, so I know exactly what colors are there, and also stopping any of the bottles falling off by putting them back on the shelves a little bit too aggressively, and it will just stop them falling all over my desk and potentially damaging anything that I may have to protect there. So that's what I did, and yeah, hopefully it's going to work. Now this is my big mess of paints that I've got to put up, and this is the new storage unit finished off, ready. It's screwed into place, and I think it looks fine, and it certainly is only 34 millimeters in depth, so it doesn't occupy a great deal of width on my unit, and I'm really quite pleased with the way that does look. So all those paints that you see in that big pile now have got to be sorted out and put into a reasonable position on all of those shelves up there. And I've got room for slightly wider ones, as well as the Valero ones or Vallejo ones, whichever way you want to say it, and all the AK Interactive, all those different paints. They really do sit up there quite nicely. Although some of the bases are 40 millimeters in diameter, that's only 34. And those ones, there's enough gap at the top to sit most of those, but everything else that I've got sits in here quite nicely. So I'm just going to get on and organize some of these paint tubes and show you the end result when I finish. Okay, I think it's worth mentioning the dimensions. Now the doorstop comes up at 34 millimeters by 12 millimeters when it's finished off, and that is ideal for this purpose. And although I had the plywood, it's 47 inches in width, and it allows on each shelf for up to 45, 46 pots of paint to be put along there. So you can see there's quite a bit of room for adding to it, although I seem to be doing that extremely fast. But I thought you'd like to know some of the dimensions as well.
Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome back. Now the footage I showed you just now was a huge pile of paints laying on here in full disarray, waiting to be organized on my new shelving unit, the new paint storage that I'd shown you a little bit of the footage on how that was built. Unfortunately, the sound got messed up on that, so it's done with a little bit of a voiceover. But this is the finished article. Well, I say finished, it's almost finished. I have all my sort of varnishes and spirits and washes and powders up through there. On these 3 shelves or 4 shelves, there are predominantly all my Valero Model Air game colors and different sort of washes and things like that there. And on the bottom, then there are the more conventional sort of AK Interactive products through there. All the rest, including the Citadel and Rail Match and everything, it's all mixed up. And a lot of the paints are dual purpose. They're not only for my model railway, but they're also for my other hobby, which is painting Games Workshop 40K miniatures. Now, I haven't been doing that very long. I used to do it a good few years ago, and I decided that through one thing or another, I would like to get back to the idea of painting some. So that's what all this business is going on down here, and just doing some bases. But moving across, it caused me to have to rearrange this room. Not only did I put this in here, but I also created another small one here for taking the bigger rattle cans and different varnishes and solvents for the airbrush, etc., as well as reorganized a little bit of room up through here, which most of you have seen in the past. Now here it has changed quite a bit, because I had this shelf down here, and this one was up here with more rail on. Now that Sandling Junction is really underway, I don't need to have 2 shelves full of rails. It was only to give me a little bit of interest while I was waiting and designing with Julian how the new Sandling Junction would look and would build. But now that's underway, I've been able to sacrifice one of these shelves to other purposes, which you see here. So the bottom shelf was moved up to the top. That is now going to be my test tracks. I've got a DC, DCC and an O gauge track there to test drive or run in or whatever I want to do with new models or clients models. If I'm doing some weathering or something, any of those things, they can be looked at up there and without interfering with the main layout. On here, it's allowed me to have a little bit of room for some overspill of different other products that I use, and of course a nice storage for all the 40K minis that I'm actually working on right now. And there are a fair few of them, and I could show you 2 or 3 boxes of old ones that I've kept for the last 15-20 years and not actually built or painted, and they are my sim bin, so I will be going through those in due course. But I'm coming way off topic, so back to this. The idea with this now is the fact that when you're normally, as an artist, you can tell your paints, you know what your paints are, and you know what you can mix and the way they will go. And in watercolors, we tend to do a little swatch of colors, so we know what the tints are, and we know what to expect when we dip our brush into them. Here, however, many of these types of paints, they separate in the bottle, and they need a little vibrating, oscillating unit just to mix them up well, or a lot of shaking by hand, whichever is your favorite thing to do. But the thing is that you can seldom tell exactly what the color is, and sometimes the name is a little elusive. So what I've got, the idea of putting these white board on, as I showed you earlier, was so that once these are all set up where I want them, I can do color swatches. I can give them a shake up, mix the colors up, and put a little swatch of color down there. So at a glance, I know exactly what's in that place on that shelf, and I think it's a darn fine idea. The only letdown to that is if I'm a little bit lazy and stop putting bottles back when I put them, use them and put them on the desk. Instead of just leave them lying around, I put them back, and they will always occupy that slot. So it is a good way of making sure that my paints are not only visible, easily accessible, but also I know which color I'm going for at any given moment. Now the thing about this room is about 5 foot wide. I'm not even sure if it's fully 5 foot wide, but there isn't an awful lot of space. I mean, I sit in this chair and my back is almost on here, and I can't really swivel properly. So space in this modeling area is a premium. And as my son pointed out to me only yesterday, that it's a great way of doing things so long as you, well, he said it will make you stay tidy. You've got to stay tidy in this environment or you will never do anything. And that is especially true when I've got 1 minute I'm doing miniatures and the next minute I'm doing train weathering, carriages, wagons, or whatever it might be. So I do not have the luxury of actually using a lot of space up and just leaving things laying around. Even things like my tools, which are generally used, I saved an old, this sort of dense polystyrene type thing. I don't quite know what it's called, but it's not your common or garden polystyrene. But a lot of items are arriving in boxes of packaging with this. And I felt that it was great because you've got a sharp implement. You can just stick it around the edge and the bigger, bulkier ones in the middle. So it made a great space-saving way of putting some of my tools. So yeah, well, that's the worked top and bench and everything else. I'm going to move on and let's see what's been going on with the layout. Okay, well, as regards the layout itself, not too much has actually been happening. I will be honest and say I've been painting a few of my minis lately and also building that storage unit that you saw to take all my paints. But aside from that, you saw trains running from the Hidden Fiddle Yard here at the end of the last video. And again, I'm sort of been testing different things out through here. And I had a couple of problems here. I thought I had to take up the curved points at this point, excuse the pun. But the thing was that I had trains running on this beautifully the other day and nothing was a problem. And then all of a sudden I put on some worthwhile trains that I have loved and they've never let me down. And all of a sudden those trains started derailing as they went across the double slip via the two curved points. And I couldn't figure it out. I kept testing, trying. I tested the back-to-backs, all of these things, and yet they kept derailing. And yeah, a good friend of mine, he helped me out so many times locally in the past, keeping my trains running. And he came round one day with a very strong light and a strong magnifier. And he discovered that there were just silly little bits of grits and things in there that just got in there and were throwing off the check rails and throwing the locomotives off as they went over. It was a simple fix, but I just could not see it. I really couldn't. So anyway, the long and short of that is I don't at the moment need to rip up any tracks or any points, and I'm really glad. And that brings me to a point here that somebody pointed out to me. I keep saying the word point now, I keep talking about points, sorry about all that. But someone mentioned to me in the last video that there was a dog leg in here. And sure enough, when I looked down the line, there was a little bit of a variance from here through here. There's a little point in there that is causing it. I do believe it may be where I put the feed wires through and the hole was not quite where it should have been, so it's hampered the free laying and running of that little bit of track. It has been tested a lot since and there has been proven nothing wrong so far. No vehicles, wagons, carriages, trains have been caused a problem by going over this area. It may on film look a bit awkward, and later on when I start filming more locos running, if I feel that's the case, then I will rip it up and just relay that to a smoother curve. If it ever starts causing a problem, then indeed I will redo that as well. So I'm going to show you a little bit of footage now of me taking on the next section of this, which is the incline that goes around from here behind me over to that point over there, and then I'll join you again in a short while.
Okay, so this is the first incline. It's all hidden and it's all non-scenic, but I wanted to get the track bed down and I wanted to get it ready to start laying track on, and that's what we're going to get onto right now. The thing is that the whole of the track laying process at this point was causing me great consternation. I was procrastinating over getting started with it, putting it off, and I think in a way that's why I started doing something else, because I was trying to avoid this. And the reason being that trying to work out the bends, the curves, the distances between, and working without the ability to just go round quickly and look at that end of that track and see, is if I put it down at that position, will it continue round in the bend in the right way, or will I end up with a horrible dog leg on it? I had to change the insulated fish plates so that they didn't bend out of the way, and then I had to hold the whole lot down. In the end, as you can see here, I did bite the bullet. I got it ready. I got the glue out and started laying this first curve and trying to figure out that, you know, do I put another piece? Do I actually measure them all out before I start laying so that all can just be added to without any problems? I chose not to. I felt that if I got anything wrong, it's easier to rip up 3 pieces of track than a whole load of it. But I also had some very old pins. I don't know what they are. I've got big wide heads on them, like big old drawing pins. I think they could have been furniture makers pins for the leather, but I used those with bits of cork to position and keep the track from moving.
Okay, so now the track bed is laid, and the point that I mentioned during the course of that bit of footage, which obviously the sound wasn't recorded, was the fact that in the last video someone mentioned to me, why did I bother putting individual track beds for each of these roads when it's hidden? I could have been doing just one piece of cork over the whole of this area and that would have been it. And that's true, I could have done that. I had considered it, but I also considered it for here as well. Now the point that, or the main reason that I didn't, is that the areas, when you get large areas of cork to lay, you really want to use a contact to make sure it's all down, all over, and no problems. And I can't really use contact adhesive in the home because my wife is a severe asthmatic, and if I'd have sort of started spraying that stuff around, I would have done her a lot of harm, especially as this room is not far from our main bedroom. So it really was out of the question, and that's why I did the individual track roads over there, because the area is considerably bigger in one lump. So what did I do? Well, I did think about the contact for a while. Could I open enough windows to stop it? And I felt it's just not worth the risk. So what I did do is I then literally used copy decks. I had short pieces all the way through, all the way around, cut, chopped, spliced, and what have you, to meet where they should do, and I wanted to stop it there. And the reason I've stopped it there is a good one, for the same reason as it starts here and has track beds through here. Around here there's going to be tunnel portals through there, and so I wanted the track to lead into the tunnels and disappear, and I wanted proper gravel as they entered the tunnel portal. And the same over here, as that comes out from there, from about there to there, is going to be an open cutting to the top layer, and that is so that I can then have a tunnel there and a little sort of portal or bridge through here, but then I can run the track through into the tunnel and have the ballast and have it looking a little bit on the realistic side instead of just disappearing into a hole and nothing more. So that's what I wanted to do. So that's why the cork stops there, and that's why the cork comes round to about here, and then literally the tunnels are going to be here. Now there's going to be a bit of footage coming up with these tracks being laid, or at least some of it being laid. I don't want to go through all of it and bore you to death with it, but I have had an absolute nightmare with this little bit of the project. I got to say, I didn't know how to tackle it. I first thought of doing individual roads, and I felt that it's going to be bad enough to work out the track distances and curvature without trying to do that twice, i.e. getting the cork bed right as well. That's partly why I wanted to go for a solid bed through there, because at least it gives me some wiggle room on the curvature. Now I've got to wire this up tonight. That's my plan. I'm not going to continue with track round here. Indeed, this piece of track, these 3 roads here, are not connected, well, they're not glued down. I needed to get them down so I could have a continuance of the curve around, so it worked right. But it was a pain because I couldn't set it, and I had no guide. So what I ended up doing is bending it and giving it enough distance and clearance which means that possibly that one might be a little too tight. I was hoping to get the whole lot coming out a little closer, but this isn't far off the edge. I wouldn't have gone much further this way anyway. I could have put them a bit closer together, but then there's always a chance of carriages crossing and hitting each other on such a curve. So I've left it as is, and I put the other pieces in there just to hold it down. And then I used some old tacks, some old pins that I had with cork, and I just kept them pressed down while this was gluing and waited the rest of it. So I haven't tested this yet. I really am standing here talking to you with fingers crossed, hoping to God that when I put some power to this little section tonight, then hopefully it all works well. And then if it does, I can then carry on going all the way around here up to this area here and stopping. And then after that, we can start breaking out through there and yeah, continue the whole of this journey. But we're a long way to go yet. But as I say, the progress has been a bit slow. Time, other interests and business, and yeah, technical difficulties with all this have prevented a massive push forward. But hopefully we're on our way. So I'm going to catch you all later, and I'll see you all in the next video. I might run a few trains just to round out this video. And enjoy your modelling. Stay safe wherever you are. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed this or you enjoy any other of my content, please hit the subscribe bell, hit the notification tab. It tells you when I put out a new video. And yeah, share and like, all those things. If you don't mind, it doesn't cost you anything, but it really does help my channel reach a wider audience, and that would be fantastic if you do that. Thank you in advance. Take care until the next one. Bye bye.